Crash Law 24 sponsors GBNews Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. The M74 southbound at Junction 1 Seaward Street off-slip is closed due to a broken down vehicle, so please approach with caution. In Suffolk, the A14 eastbound between Junction 56 Ipswich Docks and Junction 57 Ipswich East has a broken down vehicle, causing one lane to be closed. Normal traffic conditions are expected by 11:45. And on the trains, London North Western Railway is replacing trains with buses between Watford Junction and St Albans Abbey. Additionally, Northern services are replaced by buses between Corkickle and Whitehaven. Please adjust your travel plans accordingly. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GBNews Traffic and Travel Report.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Hurrah! If you want violence, death, more drugs, extremely unpleasant men behaving very badly, this is what you go to the ballet for. So this is Rombo Dance, but it's in collaboration with Stephen Knight, who wrote Peaky Blinders and who is writing the new James Bond film that Denis Villeneuve will direct. It's been touring for ages. I've raved about it before. It's currently at Sadler's Wells, and it's only on until Saturday, and then we're done. Please go and see it. We've got a tiny quick clip.
Let's look at it.
Take a little walk to the edge of town and go across the track where the viaduct looms like a bird of doom as it shifts and cracks. His shadow is cast wherever he stands, stacks of green paper in his red right hand.
Watch Peaky Blinders. Will you understand anything?
I didn't watch Peaky Blinders. I tried. I got about 10 minutes into the episode, and literally they were attacking a man, reached into his mouth and pulled his teeth out in an alleyway. And I was like, nope, not for me. This, I mean, we do get someone actually sort of stabbed in the stomach and some sort of fake entrails come out.
This ballet tries to do the kind of the whole plot.
Yeah, no, yeah. It's the story of Thomas Shelby, and it boils it down to essentials. First World War, a hero, but also because he's violent and brutal. Then building his crime empire in Birmingham, falling in love tragically and very doomed. I mean, it looks cinematic, which is what I love it. There are moments, and they do these wonderful things where every now and then they just kind of pose, and it's like a still from a film.
So this is absolutely your top one for the week.
I love this. It's
only on
beautiful.
Saturday.
It's finishing on Saturday. It has been going all around the country for a year, but this is your last chance.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning, it's 9:30 on Tuesday the 2nd of September, live across the UK, Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Now, the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, has been frozen out by Sir Keir Starmer, who's pinched her right-hand man. With pressure mounting on the Chancellor of the Exchequer, is her power on the wane?
Yes, the Chancellor is pushing a brave face on it, but there's no doubt that this reshuffle is extremely awkward for her. Is she becoming a scapegoat for a government in crisis? Find out more with me very soon.
Need to make sure that we've got a plan where we use our resources, deliver our energy security, cheap, abundant energy, while making plans for the future at the same time.
That's the Tory leader Kemi Badenoch saying a government led by her would extract all Britain's oil and gas out of the North Sea. We'll cross live to Aberdeen, where she's going to give more details about her plans this morning.
And parents of young children are benefiting from the rollout of more free childcare from this week. But with nurseries suffering from a huge shortage of staff and resources, will Labour's plan work?
Vladimir Putin being embraced by China's Xi Jinping and India's Narendra Modi as certain world leaders meet in China. We'll be asking if their sudden closeness could cause problems for Europe.
And we'll be looking at concerns that a third of the celebrities on Strictly Come Dancing are taking the fat jabs. What are the dangers of this new craze? Andrew, I thought the whole point of going on Strictly Come Dancing was to lose weight and get fit. What's the point of taking the fat jabs before you do it?
I'm great mates with Anne Widdecombe. She lost a pile of weight on that programme. Lots of people do. You get fit, but what they're doing by taking the fat jab, they're trying to get the weight off before they even start the programme, I suppose.
Well, I mean, I can understand some of the outfits they have to wear. You know, you're quite exposed. I can kind of understand they want to look at their best, but they're becoming normalised, these fat jabs, aren't they?
But that's part of the appeal when you see somebody who probably isn't best looking in a tight sequin frock.
Who would
Anne
be?
Widdecombe. She would never take the fat jab.
No, exactly. But they are becoming really normalised, aren't they? I mean, I know the prices have gone up, but people are still taking them. We don't know the long-term
Don't know if there are side effects, but they are massively successful in pardon the pun, in people cutting weight. I know people who've lost 6 stone.
Wow.
On these jabs.
Don't they make you feel really sick or something? I'm not sure if we cope with that. Anyway, we'd love to know what you think about that and all the other topics we're discussing today. So send your views and post your comments to
gbnews.com/you'll say. But first, your 60-second news update with Tatiana Sanchez.
Good morning. The headlines at 9:30. Yvette Cooper says she wants to clamp down on international students claiming asylum. It comes as tens of thousands of foreign students are being contacted directly by the government and told they'll be removed from the UK if they overstay their visas. The government's changing the law to stop the Sentencing Council issuing new guidelines to courts in England and Wales without the explicit approval of the Justice Secretary. Chinese President Xi Jinping and his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin have kicked off bilateral talks in Beijing on the eve of a massive military parade in the Chinese capital. Putin hailed relations between the countries, saying they were at an unprecedented level. And helicopter teams are searching remote villages in Afghanistan for survivors of a magnitude 6 earthquake that happened on Sunday, leaving more than 800 people dead. Those are the latest headlines for now, more at the top of the hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are, online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello, good morning. This is Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
So let's talk about the Chancellor. This is very curious, Miriam. The Sunday papers were briefed by Number 10, or people close to Number 10. There was to be no reshuffle of junior ministers on Monday. Monday morning, you open the papers, there's to be no reshuffle. Mid-morning, while we were on air, a reshuffle started, and it was significant because the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, the Deputy to the Chancellor, a man called Darren Jones, was moved from the Treasury to Number 10 in a completely new role of Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister. Also, the Prime Minister is having his first ever private personal economic advisor, based in Number 10, a Baroness who was a Deputy Governor of the Bank of England. And he's also brought in as his most senior civil servant, Rachel Reeves' most trusted tax and spend civil servant. So what this reshuffle means is the total emasculation of Rachel Reeves. He has thrown her under a political bus. He's looked at the last year and said it didn't work, and all the government's problems. Think the debacle over the winter fuel allowance, trying to cut disability benefits, had to abandon it because there was a Labour rebellion, various other problems. He's decided it was all her fault. He's the Prime Minister, isn't he? Doesn't the buck stop at the top?
Well, yes, and as you point out in your piece in the Mail today, the precedents for this are very worrying, because when Thatcher did something similar, when Boris tried to do something similar when Sajid Javid was Chancellor, it did not end well for those Chancellors. But what I don't understand is, if Starmer's not happy with Rachel Reeves and her policy team, because let's be honest, it's not her making all the decisions, she's advised by a team of civil servants and political advisors, why is he bringing in people from the Treasury, from the Bank of England, who, in my view, are responsible for the mess that we're in?
I spoke to somebody very senior in the Labour Party yesterday, and they said, what? So the admission in Number 10 is that we've got it all wrong in the last year because of all the mistakes made by the Chancellor. So what we do is we bring the Chancellor's deputy, who was implicated in all those decisions, into Number 10 to advise the Prime Minister directly. And the other thing is, this is yet again the Prime Minister. The communications secretary, director, left, so that, and he's brought in somebody from the Blair era. That'll be his 4th communications director in 5 years.
And our economic problems go back. I mean, of course, last year has been particularly bad, But the problems that we're in terms of the debt and the overspending, that goes back 20, 30 years, all of which has been overseen by the Treasury, by the Bank of England, by different teams in Number 11. And, you know, the markets are not reacting well. The 30-year gilt yields, which is what people look at to look at how safe the UK is as an investment prospect, are at the highest since 1998 today. They've gone up again, way higher than after Liz Truss's mini-budget that she was obviously very much criticised for. So it's not looking good. Surely they need new people with maybe some private sector experience rather than just...
And we've got a budget in November, and now Starmer bringing in all these people into Number 10, you won't be able to blame Rachel Reeves if the next budget goes horribly wrong. It will be his fault. And, of course, a number of people said to me yesterday, to go on about the message, but the message is dictated by the leader. What is the message? At some point, people are going to wake up to the fact the problems with the government aren't the way it's the advisers, it's the people running the government, and that is Sir Keir Starmer.
But it's also the backbenchers, because one thing they could do instead of raising taxes is to cut down some of the massive expenditure that the government makes. But the backbenchers have made it very clear that they're not going to vote for that.
They were going to take $4 billion off disability benefits, which is a fraction of the disability benefits bill. And they ducked. They dropped it because there was a threat of a revolt by Labour MPs.
So as much as you can blame Starmer and Reeves, their hands are tied in many ways. Well, should we stick with the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, because, as Andrew said, she does look rather doomed after Keir Starmer has hired his new economic team. Yeah.
She's been pressed around him for as long as we can remember. So why don't we talk to Olivia Utley, who is our political correspondent. Olivia, there's a picture I thought on the front, I think it's on the front of the Daily Telegraph, Rachel Reeves smiling through the pain, putting on a brave face, but there's no disguising this, is there? The Chancellor's had her wings clipped by the Prime Minister.
Well, absolutely, I know. I like that picture of her smiling away, but there is no doubt that this is really, really awkward for her. She's been undermined in the most obvious possible way. Her deputy has been brought in to Keir Starmer's inner team in a brand new position as Chief Economic Secretary. Well, surely the Prime Minister's Chief Economic Secretary should be the Chancellor of the Exchequer. I think it's a really interesting point you make about what is the point of all this. Keir Starmer is bringing in people who were right around Rachel Reeves to become his closest economic advisors, when presumably why he is trying to freeze out Rachel Reeves is because he blames her for the problems. I think what's going on here is that Keir Starmer thinks that this is all a question of optics. He thinks that Rachel Reeves has been tarnished, this meme of Rachel Thieves that has been going around. She is a deeply, deeply unpopular politician. And what the Prime Minister seems to think is if she is much less visible, if he brings in some other people to make some announcements, to show that he is doing something a little bit different, then things will change. But is that the case? Is it that the optics are bad, or is it actually that the people don't like the policies that this government is coming up with? And if that is indeed the case, then this little switch of team won't make very much of a difference at all. I think on a personal level, one can sort of sympathise with Rachel Reeves. Keir Starmer said going into the election that he didn't want to raise any of the major taxes. That left Rachel Reeves with very, very little wiggle room. She was painted into a corner. And then once she got into power, the reforms to both welfare and the winter fuel payments that she wanted to make to save a little bit of money, she wasn't able to do because of political pressure on the Prime Minister. Of course, both the Prime Minister and the Chancellor are from a very kind of tax and spend mindset, which some of our viewers probably don't think is the way to make growth happen. But the two are in lockstep on that. So it doesn't really work for the Prime Minister just to sort of blame the Chancellor. I think the piece you wrote in the Daily Mail today, Andrew, is really interesting because I think there isn't a good precedent for this. Once a Prime Minister either sidelines their Chancellor or gets rid of their Chancellor altogether, it is basically an admission that their way of governing isn't working particularly well. And it does feel as though Rachel Reeves has become a bit of a scapegoat. If that scapegoat is no longer in the picture anymore, then perhaps eyes will turn onto the Prime Minister himself. This could be a move that backfires for Sir Keir Starmer.
And people forget as well, I made the point this morning in the Mail, one of the titles the Prime Minister enjoys, all Prime Minister enjoys, is First Lord of the Treasury. So, but what he effectively did when he got into Number 10, he was impressed by the work Rachel Reeves did in opposition. He effectively subcontracted all responsibility for the economy to the Treasury and the Chancellor. Madness. Can you imagine Margaret Thatcher having done that? I mean, she's the boss, she's the Prime Minister, and Tony Blair made a similar mistake with Gordon Brown, and we know where that ended in the end, in tears. And Thatcher famously brought in a man called Alan Walters as an private advisor. Her Chancellor, Nigel Lawson, who she'd called unassailable, quit within a year. And I predict this is going to end very badly for Rachel Reeves, but ultimately that will hugely damage the authority of the Prime Minister.
Well, I think it all comes back to that question of narrative. Keir Starmer needs some sort of narrative about what he wants for Britain. He released a little video on X yesterday about his second phase of government. There's a lot of technocratic language in there and not very much about what his key goals are. And I think that ties into what you were saying there, Andrew. Subcontracting out economic policy, which of course is the bread and butter of government, how people are taxed, how spending is done, how growth is achieved. That is what a Prime Minister should stand for. That is what they are in power for. And yet right at the beginning, perhaps Keir Starmer made a mistake in allowing Rachel Reeves to sort of carve her own path out here. He is paying for that now, and we have seen a lot of precedents of Prime Ministers throwing their chances under the bus. Most recently, in fact, I was thinking of Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng. They were in lockstep, they agreed, they did everything together, and then Liz Truss got rid of Kwarteng in just a week. She was gone herself, not suggesting that Keir Starmer will be gone within the week, but I think once eyes move away from Rachel Reeves, the spotlight will go on to Keir Starmer himself.
Absolutely right.
Olivia Utley, GB News political correspondent. Thank you very much, Olivia, in Downing Street there.
This whole reshuffle was supposed to show that he's back on the front foot, competent. It was just a shambles.
The government seem to do this now, try and centralise power more and more, so cabinet ministers have less and less say over what's going on in their department, which you could say, well, OK, it's the Prime Minister's responsibility. But on the other hand, the Prime Minister then ends up doing absolutely everything not very well.
This Prime Minister, frankly, Miriam, has spent far too much time overseas. He'll say it's all very important. You've had Ukraine and other sort of issues, but it seems any summit, he's there. You've got foreign secretaries to do that.
Perhaps in the past, when your cabinet ministers were bigger beasts, if you like, and more competent and able to run their department, that wouldn't have been such a big deal.
Are you suggesting you doesn't think David Lammy is a brilliant ambassador for Britain on the world stage? Because you are suggesting that, I'd wholeheartedly agree.
I think he prefers fishing. Well, still ahead, with all the fears about the dangers of AI, we'll be asking whether MPs should be using the technology quite so much.
Up next, also, we're going to ask if the government's expansion of the free childcare scheme, first floated, of course, by the Tories, will really make a difference. But first, if you want some of that elusive holiday sun, and you probably do at the moment looking outside here, here's a forecast of some of our top European destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Plenty of September sunshine on offer around the Mediterranean at the moment. There are a few showers in Croatia. They'll clear away. And some wet and windy weather across the far north of Portugal and the northwest of Spain. But most of Spain, the Balearics, dry and sunny. Italy turning sunny as well after some heavy showers earlier in the week. Now the showers across Croatia, they are clearing away, and much of the Greek islands also fine, dry and sunny. And that'll generally continue throughout this week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. A bridge between Italy and Sicily was envisaged by the Romans. But just this week, the Italian government has approved the €13.5 billion project. There remain concerns that the money intended for the project could be siphoned off by the Cosa Nostra. Joining us now live from Rome is historian Alexander Mariotti. Alexander, it's absolutely great to see you. Tell me about the Roman plan. How did they intend to get across from the mainland to Sicily?
Well, it seems that, according to the sources, they were successful in 250 BC during the Sicilian Wars. but it was a pontoon bridge. It was a temporary bridge, and the purpose was to transport war elephants across for the Romans. Now, temporary bridges, all really they could have done. And in fact, the fact that there's no bridge today speaks to the difficulty of actually constructing it for a couple of reasons. One of the main ones is just the gale force winds that happen to pass through the Straits of Messina, not to mention that there's an incredible amount of seismic activity that took place. So even the great engineers of the Romans who were able to build the Colosseum did not foresee a feasible bridge that could connect the two pieces of land.
Now, the seismic risk, yes, indeed. I mean, Messina was devastated in an earthquake. If I recall, at the beginning of the 20th century, you must put me right. But do we think we've dealt with the seismic risk?
Well, you're absolutely correct. The 1908 earthquake was absolutely devastating. First of all, it killed between 70 to 85,000 people, not to mention the tsunamis that it created. So there is that risk. Now, in fairness, there's bridges in Japan that are completely adept to dealing with the seismic activity. So the engineers themselves on this project are fairly confident that that's not going to be an issue.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 10 to 10. You're watching Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
So the government's new free childcare scheme kicked in this week, and the government ministers are very keen to talk about it.
Well, working parents who earn up to £100,000 a year are now entitled to 30 hours of free childcare a week for children older than 9 months.
There's a severe warning that some nurseries don't have enough staff or resources to meet demand, and we know some nurseries are facing closure.
Well, we're now joined by Neil Leach, who's the Chief Executive of the Early Years Alliance. Good morning, Neil. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Now, this rollout of the 30 hours allowance has been staged over the last couple of years. It was the policy of the last government. How have nurseries coped with the rollout, and how do you think they will be coping this week?
I think nurseries always do their best, and childminders always do their best to accommodate the needs of parents, but it has been a struggle. And of course, this particular element of the initiative is the largest yet. So there is no question whatsoever that many nurseries, many preschools, many childminders will be put under immense pressure. And we're already starting to see that occur now. We're starting to see prices rise. We're starting to see nurseries, for example, in areas of deprivation close. So great for parents, great that, in fact, you know, they have some support with what has been incredibly expensive early years care and education. But unless you've got an infrastructure that basically is solid and stable, I would suggest it's a long-term position that we need to resolve, frankly.
Nurseries in poorer, perhaps underprivileged areas, why are they the ones that are closing? Can you spell out why that's happening?
Sure. The reality, Andrew, is simply this, and it's interesting to note that as well as representing 14,000 nurseries, preschools and childminders, we, as an organisation, a voluntary organisation, operate settings ourselves exclusively in those very same areas, i.e. areas of deprivation. This time 6 years ago, we operated 132. Today, we operate 27. We have just closed 11. And the reason for those closures, we're not for profit, as I say, so we don't have to basically provide dividends, pay dividends, or have a return on capital investment. If it breaks even, it's about as good as it gets. The reason for those closures is there is such a gross underfunding of the sector, basically, that we have struggled to keep open. And it is those areas where basically parents can't afford to pay for extras or take additional hours that basically providers will struggle. That's where we're seeing the vast majority of closures at this particular point in time.
Now, Neil, there have been funded hours for 3 and 4-year-olds for a long time, and there seems to be some good evidence on how socialising and education at that age can help children prepare for school. But the government doesn't seem to know what childcare is for babies. Is it just babysitting while parents go to work? Is it supposed to be education? But 9-month-olds do not need to learn phonics. And there seems to be some evidence that, particularly for the smallest children, long hours in childcare is not actually particularly good for them. Do you think this policy is sensible, or do you think the money would be better spent helping parents work less hours, for example, in the early years?
I certainly think it would be better spent ensuring that there's a mixed position and that parents have the opportunity to be parents. I mean, this particular initiative is about predominantly getting mums back into the working environment. And it's interesting, I really like your point, actually, you raised, because it's interesting that we talk about young children's social and emotional development in a way that puts them onto a spreadsheet. We talk about GDP. We talk about return on investments. We don't talk about creating good citizens. And yet, anybody who knows anything about the early years sector will tell you that the first 5 years of a child's life are absolutely critical in shaping their life opportunities. So this should be about children, not about economics, because economics will follow. Get it right in the early years, they will become higher taxpayers. They will cost us less on crime. They will cost us less on health. And more importantly, I'd suggest, they will be good, kind citizens, something that I think in many instances, when you wake up in the morning and you look at the news, etc., we could do with at this particular point in time. So yes, I think the focus is warped, frankly. This should be about a child's development. We don't, when a child is 5 years of age or 6 years of age, we don't say, we support them in schools so that their parents can work. But we do that for the early.
Neil, I couldn't agree more, but I'm so sorry. We are going to have to leave it there because we've run out of time. But Neil Leach, Chief Executive of the Early Years Alliance, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Really interesting. Interesting.
It is, lots to talk about. Still coming up, another Labour U-turn. We'll be delving into Yvette Cooper's comments yesterday, but first of all, your weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning. Yes, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A wet start for parts of the south. Many areas having some sunny spells, but we will, like the last few days, see some heavy showers developing. We've seen some wet weather moving up across parts of South Wales, the south coast of England through the morning. That'll continue to spread up towards the London area before lunchtime. Further north from that, some sunshine, but a sprinkling of showers developing through the day. Not as windy as yesterday. Still some strong gusts near the showers, but generally the breeze a little bit lighter and feeling pleasant enough across northeast England, southeast Scotland. Temperatures could get up to 20 Celsius. Obviously feeling cooler with the outbreaks of rain across the southeast and East Anglia during the afternoon. They should tend to break up and fizzle out a little bit this afternoon, but we'll see further showers coming into Wales and southwest England. Further north, that mix of sunshine and showers. The showers will be quite slow moving because the winds are lighter, so it may take a while before the sun pops out again, but most places will see at least a little bit of blue sky through the day. Temperatures close to average for most areas, generally into the high teens. Through the evening and overnight, the showers should tend to fade, but down to the southwest, another batch of wet weather coming in. This likely to get pretty heavy through the early hours over Wales, southwest England, and be accompanied by a pretty strong and gusty wind along the south coast. Staying pretty mild as a result in the south. Cooler skies further north, temperatures down into single figures across parts of Scotland. But Wednesday's a pretty wet and windy day. Back to school for many. It could be a very soggy start to term across England and Wales. Rain spreading into Northern Ireland, southern Scotland during the morning. Turning a bit drier across the south for the afternoon, but even then some heavy and thundery showers are possible, and it stays blustery as well. So although temperatures could again get into the 20s, feeling pretty cool for most of us with that wind.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com.
In Redcar in Cleveland, an accident on the A174 eastbound between the A172 and the A1053 has closed one lane, causing 20-minute delays. In Lancashire, the M6 northbound between junctions 34 and 35 is blocked due to an overturned vehicle. In Suffolk, a broken-down vehicle on the A14 eastbound between junction 56 at Ipswich Docks and junction 57 Ipswich East has closed one lane, with 30-minute delays estimated. And on the trains, buses are replacing trains between Watford Junction and St Albans Abbey on London North Western Railway, and between Corkicle and Whitehaven on Northern Services. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
It's our biggest Great British giveaway to date. You could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primera motorhome. This 4-berth home from home comes complete with integrated kitchen and bathroom areas and has all of the tech you'd expect from the latest 2025 model. We'll also give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that any adventures you take in your new motorhome are taken in style. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up? About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning, it's 10 o'clock on Tuesday the 2nd of September. We're live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
So yesterday the Home Secretary Yvette Cooper announced a clampdown on migrants bringing their families to the United Kingdom. Guess what? It's another Labour U-turn.
Yes, Yvette Cooper is talking tough about refugees bringing their families to the UK, but the policy could have unintended consequences, something that Yvette Cooper herself warned about just 4 years ago. Find out more with me very soon.
We need to make sure that we've got a plan where we use our resources, deliver our energy security, cheap, abundant energy, while making plans for the future at the same time.
The leader of the opposition, Kemi Badenoch, says a Tory government would get all of our oil and gas out of the North Sea. We'll be crossing live to Aberdeen, where she's giving out more detail about her plans this morning.
Vladimir Putin in praise by China's Xi Jinping and India's Narendra Modi as the world leaders meet in China. Could their closeness cause problems for us in Europe?
And we'll be looking at concerns that a third of celebrities on Strictly Come Dancing are taking fat jabs. What are the dangers of this new craze? Well, yesterday, Andrew, we had that very long, actually, interview with Kemi Badenoch in the pouring rain, where she was holding that umbrella and doing her best in the wet weather. But it was an interesting interview. We covered a lot, didn't we?
Yeah, and today she's going to be fleshing out her plan to say, despite net zero, despite Ed Miliband, the net zero fanatic in Labour's cabinet, cancelling all drilling new contracts in the North Sea, a Tory government would get the oil and the gas out of the North Sea.
Which is,
and quite right.
Yeah, well, it's very sensible. The problem is the last government introduced a 75% windfall tax on the gas and oil providers, which has made them produce less. And also, one of the big problems driving up bills is all the different additional tariffs and taxes we're paying because of all the different renewable initiatives. So, great idea, but I'm not sure it'll bring bills down.
No, but she's getting noticed and she's getting talked about, which has been a criticism in the summer. Where's she been?
And hopefully it won't rain on her in Scotland, but we will be bringing you the latest on that.
It does rain a lot in Scotland.
It does rather. Well, let us know what you think about that on gbnews.com/your say. But first, here's the news with Tatiana Sanchez.
Thank you very much and good morning. The top stories. Yvette Cooper says she wants to clamp down on international students claiming asylum. It comes as tens of thousands of foreign students are being contacted directly by the government and told they'll be removed from the UK if they overstay their visas. The Home Office launched the new government campaign in response to what it's called an alarming spike in the number of international students arriving legally on student visas, then claiming asylum when they expire. As part of the campaign, the Home Office has contacted international students directly by text and email. Under the plans, about 130,000 students and their families in total will be sent a message telling them if you have no legal right to remain in the UK, you must leave. That's as yesterday, Yvette Cooper said the government was suspending new applications for a scheme allowing refugees to bring their family members to the UK. The Tories argued the changes didn't go far enough, while the Refugee Council warned they'd only push more desperate people into the arms of smugglers.
We're bringing forward new immigration rules this week to temporarily suspend new applications under the existing dedicated refugee family reunion route.
It comes as the Prime Minister brings forward Labour's 2029 deadline to end asylum hotels, only 3 months after making the pledge. While the Shadow Energy Minister Andrew Bowie spoke to GB News this morning.
Hope it works, but the fact of the matter is that they're papering over the cracks of a situation that they have completely failed to get to grips with. You know, they came into power last year with a single slogan, smash the gangs, and they thought by smashing the gangs they'd prevent illegal crossings. They haven't smashed the gangs, they haven't prevented illegal crossings. The only thing they've smashed is the record for the number of people crossing the English Channel. So I hope that this action that the Home Secretary is taking works. Of course we all want to see the illegal crossings come down. And the number of people coming into the country get under control. But so far I've seen little to no evidence that Labour really have a concrete plan for doing so.
In other news, the government's changing the law to stop the Sentencing Council issuing new guidelines to courts in England and Wales without the explicit approval of the Justice Secretary. Under the new rules, Shabana Mahmood will have to veto powers over any new sentencing guidance issued by the independent public body. The change comes after a public dispute earlier in the year between the Sentencing Council and the government over pre-sentence reports for offenders from certain minority groups. The new measure will be brought in as part of the sentencing bill being introduced in the House of Commons today. Both the Justice Secretary and the Lady Chief Justice, who's the head of the judiciary, will be given individual powers requiring them both to approve any future guidelines before they can be issued by the Sentencing Council. Chinese President Xi Jinping and his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin have kicked off bilateral talks in Beijing on the eve of a massive military parade in the Chinese capital. Putin hailed relations between the countries, saying they were at an unprecedented level. Xi told Putin that China-Russia relations have withstood the test of international changes, adding that Beijing was willing to work with Moscow to promote the construction of a more just and reasonable global governance system. Xi is set to host China's largest ever military parade, which will mark the 80th anniversary of the surrender of the Japanese in China at the end of World War II. Now, helicopter teams are searching remote villages in Afghanistan for survivors of a magnitude 6 earthquake, leaving more than 800 people dead and over 3,000 injured. The earthquake struck the mountainous Kunar province on Sunday, and with roads blocked by debris, rescue operations need to be carried out by air. The death toll could rise significantly as many are still feared to be trapped under that rubble, while officials report entire villages being destroyed. The Taliban called for international aid, with the UK pledging £1 million in relief funding, stressing that money will not go into the Taliban's hands. And the Northern Lights will be visible across parts of the UK and Ireland overnight and may appear again on Tuesday following a powerful solar storm. The display was caused by a fast-moving coronal mass ejection that left the sun late on Saturday and was forecast to reach Earth between Monday and early this morning. Well, the Met Office earlier said the resulting geomagnetic activity could make the aurora visible further south than usual, provided the skies are dark and clear. And those are the latest headlines. For now, more in half an hour.
Hello, welcome back. This is Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates. Well, let's see what people have been saying on emails. gbnews.com/your say. And Grumpy Grandad says there's no point going for our oil and gas unless we do it ourselves, for ourselves, selling it off, then buying it back at full market prices does nothing to benefit this nation. I mean, that is a really good point. It is extracted by private companies. They can sell it to whoever they want.
Yeah.
Doesn't bring prices down. Might get some tax revenue, though.
And you did push her on that yesterday, actually, Kemi Baden. I wasn't quite convinced by her answer.
No, and I was just looking at the prices this morning, and because of all the subsidies we are now paying for renewable contracts and things like that, I think the difference between wholesale prices and consumer prices now is about 25p per unit. It was only 5p per unit in 2003. An astonishing difference.
And this is meant to be progress.
Yeah. The trouble with renewables...
We're trying to save the planet.
Exactly. But every time you introduce new renewables, you also have to have backup in gas.
Yeah.
So you're paying for two systems. It's just not cheaper. So, anyway, Ed Miliband wouldn't agree.
Yeah, and, of course, Germany is still importing vast amounts of gas from Vladimir Putin, bankrolling his war effort.
Indeed. Indeed. Well, moving on now. Yesterday, the Home Secretary confirmed that migrants granted asylum will be temporarily banned from bringing family members to Britain.
Therefore, we're bringing forward new immigration rules this week to temporarily suspend new applications under the existing dedicated refugee family reunion route.
Now, you've heard the word U-turn before in relation to this government. Well, it seems the Home Secretary has done a U-turn on this very policy. Check out what she said as recently as July 2021.
Those are the dangers that we face. If there aren't the safe legal routes for family reunion, we end up with more people being driven into the arms of these dangerous criminal gangs.
Well, somebody sympathetic might say that she's changed her mind in response to the evidence, Andrew.
Now, somebody less charitable than me would say she's changed her mind because of the threat posed to Labour by Nigel Farage's Reform UK, announcing last week he's going to deport 600,000 illegal migrants. So they're now trying to out-reform, and it won't work.
Well, there you go. That's politics responding to the voters. Good thing, surely. Well, talking of politics, we're joined by GB News' political correspondent, Olivia Utley. Olivia, good morning. As Andrew has so cleverly found, Yvette Cooper seems to have changed her mind on this issue. Can you talk us through the implications of the policy announcement made by the Home Secretary yesterday?
Yeah, so this is a pretty meaty policy announcement from the Home Secretary. We heard quite a lot of rehashing of old policies from Yvette Cooper in the House of Commons. She talked about that one-in, one-out policy. She talked about smashing the gangs, what the NCA are doing to break up that supply chain. But then we got something of substance here. She is closing a very obvious legal loophole. Refugees who have come here legally via those legal routes to claim asylum in the UK and have had their claims accepted are currently allowed to bring over their family members. Now, last year, you'll remember that the Conservatives changed the law so that Brits, people who are born and raised in the UK, are only allowed to bring their family members over here, only allowed to bring their spouses over here if they earn over £29,000. That change was not reflected for refugees. Yvette Cooper is changing that. So from now on, from this week, in fact, refugees whose claims are accepted who come here to the UK will not be able to bring over their families unless they are earning £29,000, and they won't be able to do it for 3 years. There is a precedent for this. It's the same is done in Germany and in Austria. But as Andrew has very cleverly found, just 4 years ago, Yvette Cooper stood up in the Commons and said that if you do not have those safe and legal ways for people to bring their families over here, then people who want to be with their families will end up in the hands of people smugglers. And I think actually the Yvette Cooper of 4 years ago had a very interesting point, had a really important case to make. And I think Yvette Cooper of now might find that this is a problem for her. Lots of people who are coming here on small boats are claiming asylum here under Article 8 of the European Court of Human Rights, which gives them a right to a family life. Now, we know that judges, the Home Secretary worries that judges are over-interpreting Article 8 and giving all sorts of people refugee status here under the claim that they want a right to a family life. What you could end up see happening is people who want to come here with their families, instead of coming as legal refugees via those safe and legal routes, they will come on the small boats instead. So what you might end up seeing is a surge in the number of small boat migrants. That is what Yvette Cooper warned about in 2021. But she's not listening to her own advice now. Why is that? Well, she knows that the government needs to get a grip on this immigration crisis. The summer has gone by. Reform has come out with a whole raft of policies. We've seen protests across the entire country. And now the government is doing everything it can to try and get a grip on this narrative. It'll be fascinating to see how these policies play out with the public. They are actually quite meaty. They might make a big change in the number of people coming over here, but I think the narrative has just slipped away from the government at this point, and it'll be seen by people as too little, too late, even if it is quite a substantial change.
Because certainly ahead of that statement yesterday, there was some speculation, even expectation, that she would change the rules slightly, maybe force refugees to wait slightly longer, to work for 2 or 3 years, to build up enough assets to be able to bring a family over and support them. But she didn't do that at all. She just suspended the whole system. Do you think this is marking a political change from Labour of being much tougher on asylum seekers, on refugees?
Well, I think, yeah, it's a much quicker change, and I think that shows just how sort of desperate and urgent, finally, the government is seeing that this problem is. Yes, we heard talk about a white paper coming out perhaps in the autumn, talking about changing the plans. The white paper will probably take a few months to come through, etc., etc. It seems that Yvette Cooper and the government has realised that the time for white papers and the time for consultations has passed. Reform are up on Labour 15 points in the polls, and while Nigel Farage is saying he could deport tens of thousands of migrants, Yvette Cooper needs to respond with something strong and radical. This is strong and radical, but I wonder if it'll get through. We talk at Westminster about a policy having cut through. This is a big change, but I think that the moment is past, perhaps, for big changes. It'll be really interesting to see. We haven't yet got a proper poll after this announcement yesterday. Will it resonate with the public, or will the public still see Nigel Farage and his very radical plan to deport as many migrants as possible, as quickly as possible, as the way forward?
Interesting, isn't it? Because I mean, I still think it feels like an incremental change, whereas what Farage announced last week, 600,000 migrants would be deported, it feels like a massive and major change. Now, turning our attention internationally, Russia's President Vladimir Putin, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Chinese President Xi were seen getting along pretty well at a global summit in China.
And while this viral clip may look like a light-hearted moment between the three leaders, could it reveal a deeper power play? Well, the man with the answers is David Dunn, who's a professor of international politics at the University of Birmingham. Professor Dunn, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Is this a sign of things to come, the leaders of China, Russia, even Kim Jong-il yesterday as well, joining in his first multilateral summit? What's going on in geopolitics here?
So that's certainly what President Xi would like you to believe. This is the largest gathering by population of any security organization in the world. And what this is an attempt to build a Chinese world order with Beijing at the heart of that. So the warm embrace of India and Russia, both countries, of course, who are moving very much towards Chinese orbit, but also actually a huge number of other countries around the world, from the Middle East, from the global south, and the like. And they're gathering there to watch a huge military parade that will happen on Wednesday, but also actually to celebrate what they have in common. And what they have in common is a dislike of Donald Trump and what they regard as his disruptive tariffs on the world economy, the dominance of the dollar, and an attempt really to build, that alternative to that, a grouping of states who actually are not concerned about human rights or international law, and are more concerned about building trade among themselves. And of course, China is buying Russian gas. India is buying Russian oil on a huge scale. And Russia has been rehabilitated on the world stage at this meeting. But of course, that process started, that rehabilitation, when Trump met him in Alaska with nothing to show from it from the American perspectives, but lots to show from it from the Russian perspectives. So in a sense, you could see this as a glimpse of the future. Certainly there's an effort going on to do just that. Where it goes, we'll have to wait and see.
Almost sense how much Putin is revelling in the eyes of the world focused on him, having been an international pariah, David, for so long. And I find it faintly repulsive to see the Indian Prime Minister, a so-called Democrat, warmly embracing, laughing and cheering with the butcher of Ukraine.
Yes, and that's a real change. 3 years ago, when they met in this gathering, Prime Minister Modi was critical of Putin for his war at that point. But remarkably, 30 years of American diplomacy to try and pull India into the American orbit has been damaged by, rather strangely, Trump's insistence that Modi accept that he was instrumental in stopping the border clash between India and Pakistan. Modi is furious at that by virtue of the fact that Modi won't accept that Trump had a role in that. That's part of the motivation why Trump has slapped now 50% tariffs on India over supposedly the main reason is meant to be the support for Russia, but it's partly this individual spat, and that is pushing Modi and India towards China and Russia. So it's an extraordinary situation to see that. But India's always had a very independent foreign policy-minded approach to international politics, and that's partly what we're seeing here. They like to play every angle. They like to actually run with the horse and the hounds, and that's partly what we're seeing here as well.
Well, Professor David Dunn, thank you so much for your time this morning. Andrew, it is extraordinary how the West have put all these sanctions on Russia, and yet all that's happened is Russia has traded more with China. I think trade between Russia and China doubled since 2021.
And the West, as we were saying earlier, Germany is still buying Russian gas.
That's right.
Disgusting.
And as you said, Xi Jinping has not condemned the Ukraine war. Is he hoping for Russian support were China to attack Taiwan, for example?
I know, that was going through my head as I saw them all together. Did you see the Prime Minister of India was actually holding Vladimir Putin's hand?
And he said how wonderful it was to see him. Yeah, strange alliances. It's a new multipolar world. Well, time now for our latest Great British Giveaway. And it's our biggest prize to date, worth over £104,000.
Wow, that's a lot. You could win a 4-berth motorhome worth over £74,000 plus a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash. Here's Hayley Sparks with all the details.
It's our biggest, greatest Great British giveaway to date. Your chance to win a prize package worth over £104,000. You could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primero motorhome. With thanks to Marquis Leisure, this 4-berth home from home comes complete with integrated kitchen and bathroom areas, sky view roof lights, and has all the tech you'd expect from the latest 2025 model. We'll also give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to make sure any adventures in your motorhome are taken in style.
For a chance to win the motorhome and cash, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. The winner will be contacted live on GB News, week commencing 10th November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Well, still ahead, we'll be asking if Reform's radical plans for public sector pensions will work and what they'll mean for the country's 2 million local government workers.
We're also going to be discussing the frankly ridiculous report which claims, here we go, we haven't heard this before, the countryside is overwhelmingly white. And get this, it needs more halal food. No, it doesn't.
Well, you're watching Britain's Newsroom, Britain's favourite morning show on GB News.
want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power. Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
What do you think is the origin of this palace not being loved by the royal family as a place to live?
Well, you see, it's a little bit like an Edwardian hotel in Brighton. It's all long corridors and rooms off them. It's not very friendly as a place, you know. So the Queen and Prince Philip occupied the rooms along the Constitution Hill side. She had half of them and he had the other half. And if ever they came out into a corridor, you know, so it's just not very friendly. And of course, the other thing is that the gardens are now terribly overlooked by the Hilton and other big buildings, whereas the King living at Clarence House, he has a very nice garden there and it's not overlooked at all. I mean, I have seen Prince Philip's rooms because I worked with his office a lot and I did a book about his mother, so I was there quite often. I haven't seen the Queen's rooms, but I'd love to see them.
Yes. And at the beginning of Queen Elizabeth II's reign, the palace was not open to the public at all, was it?
No, it wasn't. And actually, she didn't want to go and live there either. She was living in Clarence House, but Churchill said that it was sovereign's residence and she had to move in. He forced her to move in. That was quite tricky because the Queen Mother and Princess Margaret were still living there at the beginning. And then they moved into Clarence House a little while later, somewhat before the coronation. The only reason that the palace was open as a public tourist attraction was to make money to pay for the fire damage of 1992 at Windsor Castle. And that was so successful that the opening has gone on ever since, and it raises money for the Royal Collection Trust in order to look after all the treasures which are held by the sovereign for the nation.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 25 minutes past 10 and we are ready to go.
Well, actually, Nigel Nelson was already ready to go, which is what I was chatting to.
It's already started.
I often forget I'm on live television. Funny that, isn't it?
So used to it.
And we've got former government advisor when the Tories were in power, Charlie Rowley. Look, I've got to ask you, Nigel, you and I are veterans of writing about reshuffles.
Oh, yes.
Reshuffles, we think, are about cabinet ministers, and I often think it doesn't make a lot of difference. But we were specifically told, the Sunday papers all wrote, there's to be no reshuffle of junior ministers. Monday morning, we all no reshuffle. While we were on air yesterday, we learned that Darren Jones, who was the Chief Secretary of the Treasury, Rachel Reid's deputy, had moved from the Treasury to number 10 in this new grand-sounding role of Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister. There was a blooming reshuffle. Just what's going on over there?
Well, it was
what they're doing.
It was a sort of reshuffle, but the reshuffle took place in number 10 rather than amongst the junior minister ranks, where we're all waiting eagerly by the phone just in case they get the call.
First day back at term school, but so Parliament resumes yesterday. If you're going to do a reshuffle, do it in the first week of recess, so they can all read into their new...
Yeah, I mean, the tradition is done that way on the basis that you've got party conferences coming up, and if a minister is going to speak at party conference, they ought to know what they're talking about. The only difference here, I think, is that all the indications are the Cabinet is not going to change, or at least not going to change.
But what has changed is the role of the Chancellor, who was all-powerful.
Right.
Our first woman Chancellor of the Exchequer. We've now got the Prime Minister in this reshuffle has his own economic advisor in number 10. We've got her most senior civil servant on taxation. He's gone in to be the Prime Minister's personal, what's his title? The most senior civil servant with the desk outside number 10. And Darren Jones, her deputy, has gone to the Treasury's she's been emasculated.
Or it could be that she's done a reverse takeover.
No.
On the basis that...
Oh, you heard it here first.
On the basis that she's close to Darren. She's close to Darren Jones. Darren Jones was her deputy there, and so she's got economic people in Downing Street.
No.
I'm not saying I believe it. I'm just suggesting that as a possibility.
That's a rather ludicrous
Charlie, do you not
propagated the Guardian.
do you not think this is more less reshuffle, more rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic?
Totally. I mean, look, successive prime ministers have always said that number 10 hasn't been strong enough. And, you have the Cabinet Office. You've got Pat McFadden, that's the Cabinet Office Minister. He's the man that is supposed to be having all of his tentacles across Whitehall to get the delivery of what number 10 and what the Prime Minister wants. And they've clearly failed. So to bring in Darren Jones, who did suggest not so long ago that the majority of people coming over in small boats were women and children.
Which was offensive, apart from wrong.
Completely and factually wrong.
Yeah.
And so
73% are young men.
Exactly. And that is the number one issue that the country faces. So if you make a gaffe like that, if you're not in control of what is the number one issue of the country, the idea that he's going to be able to go in and sort everything out on behalf of the Prime Minister, I think is he'll be found wanting.
But it's easy to blame Reeves after a year of negative headlines and poor growth and all those things. But her hands have been completely tied by her backbenchers. She wanted to implement some cuts to welfare, which was one of the biggest bills that we've got growing.
Which was a mistake the way she went about it.
Potentially, but essentially her authority has been completely undermined by her backbenchers. What can she do now apart from fiddle with a few obscure taxes?
Yeah, but I think that the whole point of this new reset. I mean, this must be the third, mustn't it? But the whole point of it is that the last year, or the first year of this government, hasn't gone great. I mean, they have made.
Is that even by your standards?
Yeah. Well, look
the understatement of the century.
Well, the whole
gone great.
That some things they get some things they're getting right, but some of the things that they could have avoided. We started off with the freebie clothes. Now, anybody should have seen that one coming. Then we get down to...
Just remind people, the Prime Minister had £32,000 worth of free clothes and spectacles from Lord Alley, a major Labour donor, who then, curiously, got a free all-access pass to...
Well, either way, you shouldn't have taken it. No. Then we get... the next stage comes in, the pensioners get hit with a winter fuel allowance. That should have been taxed, so you got richer pensioners getting less money. And finally, the saving on disability benefits, which was then billed as benefit reform. Sure, you need to have welfare reform, but the first thing you need to do is a proper review to get there, which is now happening. So it's the right way round this time, but it was the wrong way round the first time.
The reshuffle yesterday suggests he's thrown her under the political equivalent of a bus.
Well, I'm not sure that's necessarily true.
I think Charlie, I think he's thrown her under a bus.
Totally. I mean,
you didn't get the right answer from me.
No, but there's a constant sort of narrative that the Prime Minister also has a woman problem, and so he's got Angela Rayner, that's the Deputy Prime Minister, that's supposed to be doing a lot of the delivery. She's obviously got her own problems in the front pages, but he's brought in Darren Jones to this role. Pat McFadden is there, but the Chancellor, obviously, as Andrew said earlier, first female Chancellor. This should be an absolute success for a Labour government. And not only was it the winter fuel, it was the farmers' tax, it was increasing national insurance tax when they said they weren't going to do it.
I would call those the right things to do, though. That's the difference.
But they said to the country during the general election, we're not going to increase national insurance, VAT or income tax.
On working people.
On working people. Then she goes and does it. Not to mention that inflation is up, crime is up, energy...
But that's an interpretation.
Immigration, illegal immigration is up. All the things they said they were not going to do, it's happened within the first 6 months. It's been a total disaster.
Well, the three main things that she said she wouldn't do was income tax, VAT and employer national insurance. I know it didn't actually say the word employer.
Well, there you go.
But it did say that it wouldn't be a tax on working people. So she did do that.
But people who employ people are working people, Nigel.
Well, yeah, I know. I mean, we can start banding about a definition, but she hasn't actually broken her manifesto pledges.
They said there'd be no additional tax on working people. They whacked employers with more national insurance. That's a tax on working people. That's a breach of their manifesto. It's a broken promise.
Charlie, I think it's very interesting what you're saying about Keir Starmer's woman problem, because, of course, there are far more female MPs on the Labour benches, proportionally, than there are in the Conservative Party, for example. I think they're 50%, whereas Conservatives are well under 30%. And yet all the people with the power and the ideas on the left seem to be men. Do you think that's significant? It's not the same in Conservative circles, is it?
No, I think that's absolutely... Well, you know, the Conservative Party has had 3
lot of leaders.
female... Or 4 female leaders now, is it? So, you know, there's no problem there. But I think... You know,
no, it's number 5, aren't we?
Sorry.
Thatcher, May... Truss. Oh, no. Kemi. Baylock Paul, yeah.
I mean, you could be forgiven for getting one or two.
Yes, exactly.
But
you're not Chancellor. 2 of them, actually.
But you're absolutely right. But, you know, we're hearing stories about, you know, people like Lisa Nandy's been sidelined, Bridget Phillipson had been sidelined. You know, there's this number 10 clear-out that do seem to be female private secretaries. So there's a boys' club mentality.
I snuck into a left-leaning think tank's policy session because I was interested in the topic. And as there's about 120 people there, there were only 3 women in the room, including me. That would never happen on the right.
You need to get out more, Miriam.
Well, you know, think tanks, that's my idea of a laugh, Charlie. There you go. Well, we better end it there.
Yes, on that note.
We'll see you again in an hour.
Consorting with lefties.
There you go.
That, dear me.
Confirming everybody's worst fears, obviously. Yeah. Well, we'll leave you to until the next hour. But first of all, we've got your 60-second news update with Tatiana Sanchez.
Good morning. The top stories. Yvette Cooper says she wants to clamp down on international students claiming asylum. It comes as tens of thousands of foreign students are being contacted directly by the government and told they'll be removed from the UK if they overstay their visas. The government's changing the law to stop the Sentencing Council issuing new guidelines to courts in England and Wales without the explicit approval of the Justice Secretary. Chinese President Xi Jinping and his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin have kicked off bilateral talks in Beijing on the eve of a massive military parade in the Chinese capital. Putin hailed relations between the countries, saying they were at an unprecedented level. Helicopter teams are searching remote villages in Afghanistan for survivors of a magnitude 6 earthquake that happened on Sunday, leaving more than 800 people dead. Those are the latest headlines for now. More in half an hour.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Well, coming up next, questions are being asked about whether or not MPs should be using artificial intelligence to write their speeches.
Yeah, but what? Did you ever use it?
No.
Quite right too. This is Britain's Newsroom, GB News.
Good morning. Yes, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A wet start for parts of the south. Many areas having some sunny spells, but we will, like the last few days, see some heavy showers developing. We've seen some wet weather moving up across parts of South Wales, the south coast of England through the morning. That'll continue to spread up towards the London area before lunchtime. Further north from that, some sunshine, but a sprinkling of showers developing through the day. Not as windy as yesterday. Still some strong gusts near the showers, but generally the breeze a little bit lighter and feeling pleasant enough across northeast England, southeast Scotland. Temperatures could get up to 20 Celsius. Obviously feeling cooler with the outbreaks of rain across the southeast and East Anglia during the afternoon. They should tend to break up and fizzle out a little bit this afternoon, but we'll see further showers coming into Wales and southwest England. Further north, that mix of sunshine and showers. The showers will be quite slow moving because the winds are lighter, so it may take a while before the sun pops out again, but most places will see at least a little bit of blue sky through the day. Temperatures close to average for most areas, generally into the high teens. Through the evening and overnight, the showers should tend to fade, but down to the southwest, another batch of wet weather coming in. This likely to get pretty heavy through the early hours over Wales, southwest England, and be accompanied by a pretty strong and gusty wind along the south coast. Staying pretty mild as a result in the south. Cooler skies further north, temperatures down into single figures across parts of Scotland. But Wednesday's a pretty wet and windy day. Back to school for many. It could be a very soggy start to term across England and Wales. Rain spreading into Northern Ireland, southern Scotland during the morning. Turning a bit drier across the south for the afternoon, but even then some heavy and thundery showers are possible, and it stays blustery as well. So although temperatures could again get into the 20s, feeling pretty cool for most of us with that wind.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. Motorists face disruptions on the M73 northbound as Junction 2A is closed for roadworks. Drivers should follow the diversion route and anticipate longer journey times. The A174 eastbound has a 10-minute delay due to a traffic collision. Leicestershire's M1 southbound has a broken-down vehicle closing one lane. Expect delays. Suffolk's A14 eastbound is slow between Junction 56 Ipswich Docks and Junction 57 Ipswich East. And on the trains, buses are replacing trains between Watford Junction and St Albans Abbey. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
(10:37), Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Miriam.
Now, the government is investing billions of pounds in AI, artificial intelligence, but MPs seem also to be embracing the technology.
It appears research of common speeches by the Pimlico Journal has found that the use of terms strongly associated with AI-generated text has increased massively in the last 3 years.
Now, AI, of course, has many benefits, but with so many concerns about the technology, we're asking, should we be worried that MPs are so keen to use it? Well, we're joined now by Oscar Redrop, who's a former advisor to Boris Johnson, and Melanie Garson, who is a cyber policy expert. Good morning to you both. Thank you for joining us. Now, the research that's been done by the Pimlico Journal has analysed hundreds of speeches and looked at kind of commonly used words and motifs that ChatGPT comes up with, and suggests that since the introduction of ChatGPT, there's been a massive spike in some of these words, implicating MPs in using this technology to write their speeches. Oscar, do you think if it is true, this is a problem?
I don't think it is a problem if it is true, if I'm quite frank. I mean, some of the great orators of our time, you know, my previous boss, I would throw into that category, like Boris, would never, ever turn to something like AI. I don't know if anyone has sat and watched an entire kind of session in the House of Parliament, you know, for an hour, you know, a couple of hours or so. MPs, before AI, have been reeling off generic rubbish for decades. There is even a resource that MPs use that basically gives them a research resource that gives them copied and pasted suggestions and answers and policy arguments anyway. So if anything, it will just make things more efficient, more concise, and actually it might even smoke out some of the more lazy and useless MPs, which in the name of democracy is probably no bad thing. We need to know who those people are.
Melanie, what do you think? I mean, Oscar's, I think, talking about the House of Commons Library, which provides research for MPs, but the difference with the House of Commons Library is that it is fully researched and fact-checked, whereas some of the things that ChatGPT comes out with are not necessarily so truthful. Oh, I can't hear Melanie at the moment.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. No, we've seen some startling examples of this, even in massive sort of places which should have good research, like Deloitte's recently with misuse of AI and misquoting. We've seen court cases. There was one in Melbourne, a murder case in Australia, where the prosecution had used sort of made-up quotes and made-up cases even. So the risks that beyond, you know, what's going into that is that we could have MPs relying on information, creating whole speeches out of things that aren't factually true to start off with. There's also a huge risk of where that can be maliciously manipulated if you're using an LLM that's come from one of the large houses, where information could, by a malicious actor, be deliberately fed in the training data that these speeches are being built on. You could actually risk democracy if a malicious actor really puts their mind to trying to create a situation where MPs are using false information in the outset, or divisive information, or information that could actually rock the integrity of what MPs are seeking to do.
I completely understand, if you zoom out a little bit, the dangers of AI and democracy in our politics in a more zoomed out way. But in terms of, speeches and the like, I mean, MPs have been reeling off untruths and, or at least being playful with the truth, again, for decades and generations. I don't see AI being used to form some of their speeches as changing that. And look, I mean, I would challenge any normal person who doesn't sit watching the House of Commons day in, day out because they have friends and they have a job and a family, etc. Would you rather your MP was out there on the beat, actually solving problems in your constituency and contributing to the debate that way, and maybe saving 5 or 10 minutes on a House of Commons speech, as opposed to, burrowing their head in a desk in a
Oscar,
candlelit
don't you
room
think that is actually the heart of the problem, which is that Parliament used to be the focus of our political life in the UK, where the law was made, where serious arguments were developed. There wasn't such a strong whipping system, so MPs used to think for themselves. And actually, this is just a sign that Parliament has been sidelined, that it's just there for showcasing Facebook clips, and nobody takes it seriously enough to even research their own speech.
I think it's also the point, can I jump in there, that as you pointed out, you said that, MPs have sort of spouted untruth. Often that was deliberate. That was knowing it was an untruth. It was sort of designed to be inflammatory. We have a situation here that they might be espousing an untruth, fully believing it's the truth. And that creates a distance. It's one thing to be playful. It's one thing to have that clever rhetoric. I actually think it will take away that skill from MPs. And the other side is, if you look at the report, is where they're using it to actually respond to constituents. So actually not getting out there. Is it making them lazier? And they're using sort of co-pilot and mass-produce answers that actually aren't necessarily addressing constituents' problems.
Oscar?
That's a very valid point, and we would want to avoid that ultimately. I do wonder. You do have to question that the rise of kind of AI and ChatGPT has actually. I'm being slightly tongue-in-cheek here, but has slightly aligned with very boring, dull, generic ChatGPT leaders.
Name the names. Who are these boring leaders?
They are on all sides, but every time I see Keir Starmer these days, I just think, it's not just ChatGPT governing his speeches. It's his body positioning, his face. Is this guy even real at this point?
Maybe he's AI. Melanie, I mean, do you think that AI could actually enhance contributions in any way from our politicians, because perhaps it can do more detailed research that they can't do?
I mean, the sort of mantra's always been with AI that it's like, or using ChatGPT, it's like having 1,000 interns at your disposal.
Yeah.
But the question is, how reliant are you going to be on those 1,000 interns? And the more reliant you get on not questioning that information, the more your own knowledge sort of sometimes. So I think there is a space and time, but there's also massive risk. So a lot of people, for instance, might take their speech, put it into ChatGPT and say, okay, use it, refine my speech for me. But the minute you do that, I think what people forget is you're losing, in effect, like the copyright on it, the integrity on it, because the minute that speech is inside the system, it's part of the training data. That means another MP could be using it. So it's got to be very, very carefully managed. I think what's massively needed is perhaps, you've got huge amounts of MPs that don't understand this technology. We have MPs voted on single issue platforms that are very divisive, that, their whole understanding of parliamentary issues as a whole is weak. That it just opens up a point that there needs to be a sort of mandatory training and understanding on how these systems work properly and where the risks they could use, copyright, integrity, security, like who are they giving this information to the minute they start interacting with ChatGPT?
Well, Oscar, Melanie, that's all we've got time for, but a fascinating debate. Thank you so much.
And do you know, I've never used it.
No, well,
I wouldn't know how to, actually, let's be honest.
I use it for research, so it's really good at drawing data out of multiple sources really quickly. If you want to compare, I don't know, tax rates over the years or something like that. But I don't use it for writing. I did once put in an article I'd written that was too long and said, cut 400 words out of this, which it did, but it rewrote it in a completely inhuman way. But what it did do was insert a quote by Benjamin Netanyahu, a quote that I didn't recognise. So I typed in again, find me the source for this quote. And it chunted away, ChatGPT is thinking, and then said, actually, we can't find any evidence that Benjamin Netanyahu ever said this.
Wow.
Now, how scary is that?
Is really
if I hadn't have checked and just published that. Yeah. So, and that's put me off ever using it for anything like that again. So be careful. Who knows what MPs are saying?
Yeah, right.
Anyway, coming up next.
There's the latest on Kemi Badenoch's plans, if the Tories win the election, and that's a big if, of course, to increase drilling for North Sea oil and gas. But first, if you want some holiday sun, stay tuned for the forecast.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Plenty of September sunshine on offer around the Mediterranean at the moment. There are a few showers in Croatia. They'll clear away. And some wet and windy weather across the far north of Portugal and the northwest of Spain. But most of Spain, the Balearics, dry and sunny. Italy turning sunny as well after some heavy showers earlier in the week. Now, the showers across Croatia, they are clearing away, and much of the Greek islands also fine, dry and sunny. And that'll generally continue throughout this week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised. I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there short and he did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
It's 9 minutes to 11. You're watching Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Now, in a few moments, I bet you can't wait, Kemi Badenoch will tell business leaders in Aberdeen how the Tories plan to increase drilling for oil and gas in the North Sea, big if they win the general election.
We need to make sure that we've got a plan where we use our resources, deliver our energy security, cheap, abundant energy, while making plans for the future at the same time.
Well, I think it's very important, Andrew.
I do.
Anyway, the
Conservative
Conservative... Exactly. You should be on the edge of your seat because the Conservative leader is making a clear attempt to distance her party from Labour's drive for net zero. Well, let's cross to Aberdeen and speak to GB News' Scotland reporter, Tony Maguire. Tony, what are we expecting to hear in this speech?
Yeah, good morning. Well, it's been an interesting morning here in Aberdeen. The Port of Aberdeen was the location for Kemi Badenoch today, before going, obviously, to speak at the conference a little later. And, you know, she spoke to members of the press and found out a bit more about the Port of Aberdeen, which is interesting because the Port of Aberdeen has actually spent hundreds of millions in refurbishing and pushing itself towards reimagining the port for a net zero future. So an altogether interesting location for Ms Badenoch to choose this morning, but she is going on then to speak at this conference, and we're going to expect, you know, her to talk down reforms plans for part nationalisation and talk up the return to kind of the end of the cancel of North Sea licences, which of course Keir Starmer brought in his first year in government, as well as generally looking at ways to support the oil and gas sector for decades to come. Now, obviously net zero targets in Scotland are kind of lagged behind, and you know, I think it's safe to say that Scotland and the UK as a whole is feeling the pinch from the kind of turn away from oil and gas, which of course during the 80s and 90s was a booming sector, and here in Aberdeen was the beating heart of that sector around the world. But with the Grangemouth closure last year, Scotland is very much felt in the dark, nowhere more so than here in Aberdeen. Now, Kemi Badenoch, she'll talk at the Offshore Alliance conference a little later on today, and you know, she's expected to, as I said, talk back that plan of a cancellation of future licences on oil and gas, as well as opening and expanding the Jackdaw and Rosebank fields when she talks to people over at the conference. Now, it's a bit unusual to see Kemi Badenoch up here in Scotland, and I know a lot of people are waiting for her to make her big move, but you know, let's see if this becomes it this afternoon.
Well, Tony Maguire, thank you very much. We'll have all the latest on that. Of course,
it's a big moment for her because the Tories are not doing very well in Scotland at all.
They had a peak under Ruth Davidson, but unfortunately it's gone downhill since then.
She was terrific.
She was superb.
But she quit, sadly.
Indeed.
She's in the House of Lords now.
Well, we're going to be talking about a major crackdown on two-tier justice after the break. You're watching Britain's Newsroom, Britain's favourite morning show on GB News.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, very good day to you. This is your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. Now, the changeable weather is going to continue as we go through today. Yes, most of us will see some bright or sunny breaks, but there will also be some showers, even some longer spells of rain, because low pressure still firmly in control, a mature low to the north of the UK, and then another smaller low pressure system has pushed in from the south, and it's this that's been the driving force for some persistent rain across southern parts through this morning, and there will be some more persistent rain across parts of the southeast as we go through this afternoon. Elsewhere, a mixture of some bright sunny spells, but also a fair few showers, and some of them could be heavy, maybe even thundery. If you catch any of those bright sunny spells, it's not going to feel too bad. Relatively warm, actually, with temperatures in the low 20s for some and winds lighter than yesterday. Then, as we go through the end of today, while across parts of the southeast, still some persistent rain for a little while yet, eventually clearing away towards the east. Otherwise, still a fair few showers continuing, and some of them could be heavy. There could be some thunder, some hail, some lightning mixed in, especially across some parts of Scotland, particularly towards the northwest. This is where we're going to see the heaviest, most frequent showers. Otherwise, as we go through the night, most of the showers are actually going to die out, so it is going to turn largely dry with some clear skies, but only for a short period of time. That's because there's more wet and windy weather pushing in from the southwest as we go through the early hours of tomorrow morning, spreading across much of England, Wales and also Northern Ireland. Under the wet and windy weather, while temperatures won't drop a huge amount, mid-teens for many places, but a fair few degrees fresher than this for some parts of Scotland where we get clearer skies. Tomorrow is then going to be a wet and windy day. Some heavy rain around, though the more persistent rain clearing away from England as we go through into the afternoon, with some hefty showers following in behind. More wet weather, though, across parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland, with the persistent rain continuing. Also watch out for the strong winds, and with those, temperatures are really academic. Bye-bye.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's our biggest Great British giveaway to date. You could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primera motorhome. This 4-berth home from home comes complete with integrated kitchen and bathroom areas and has all of the tech you'd expect from the latest 2025 model. We'll also give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that any adventures you take in your new motorhome are taken in style. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dawdney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's 11 o'clock on Tuesday, the 2nd of September, live across the UK, Britain's Newsroom, with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Now, the Justice Secretary will have a veto over any new guidance issued by the Sentencing Council. This is after a row over two-tier justice plans.
Vladimir Putin embraced by China's President Xi and India's Narendra Modi as these world leaders meet in China. What does their closeness mean for Europe?
We at Reform, we're on the side of elderly, vulnerable residents in our council areas who need better social care. That is the difference. So this, ladies and gentlemen, is Reform at work. digging in, finding savings on behalf of our residents and our taxpayers.
We'll be asking if Reform's radical plans for public sector pensions will work and what they'll mean for the country's 2 million local government workers.
We'll look at concerns that a third of the celebrities on Strictly are taking those fat jabs. Are there dangers to this new craze?
Now, yesterday, that Reform press conference, which we covered in the show, I thought was really, really interesting because they chose to cover something that's quite technical and a lot of people will find quite complicated to understand how pensions work. But they're showing that they're on top of the detail.
Yeah, and they've looked at these councils that are now run by Reform, 12 in total, I think. They've looked at the books and seen that the pensions have been neglected. They're being often run with lots of net zero environmental issues, which is probably not very good for the return.
Yeah.
And they're going to shake it all up. And they say they could save, well, it could be up to £350 off your council tax bill.
That's
It would be extraordinary.
£8 to £10 billion across the whole country, which could be saved from our tax bills or reinvested in something else.
Could go into social care. And if they can do that with local authority pensions, what about the NHS pension bill, which must be astronomical?
And teachers' pensions, and of course those pensions are not funded in the way that local authority pensions are. There's no pot for those pensions, so they're getting more and more expensive as the years goes on. We're going to be talking to an expert on that. What could it mean for the whole of the UK? Well, we'd love to know what you think. Send your views and comments to
gbnews.com/you'll say, but first the headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Thank you very much, Andrew. The top stories. Yvette Cooper says she wants to clamp down on international students claiming asylum. It comes as tens of thousands of foreign students are being contacted directly by the government and told they'll be removed from the UK if they overstay their visas. The Home Office launched the new government campaign in response to what it's called an alarming spike in the number of international students arriving legally on student visas, then claiming asylum when they expire. As part of the campaign, the Home Office has contacted international students directly by text and email. Under the plans, about 130,000 students and their families in total will be sent a message telling them if you have no legal right to remain in the UK, you must leave. That's as yesterday, Yvette Cooper said the government was suspending new applications for a scheme allowing refugees to bring their family members to the UK. The Tories argued the changes didn't go far enough, while the Refugee Council warned they'd only push more desperate people into the arms of smugglers.
We're bringing forward new immigration rules this week to temporarily suspend new applications under the existing dedicated refugee family reunion route.
The Prime Minister brings forward Labour's 2029 deadline to end asylum hotels only 3 months after making the pledge. Well, the Shadow Energy Minister Andrew Bowie spoke to GB News this morning.
Hope it works, but the fact of the matter is that they're papering over the cracks of a situation that they have completely failed to get to grips with. You know, they came into power last year with a single slogan, smash the gangs, and they thought by smashing the gangs they'd prevent illegal crossings. They haven't smashed the gangs, they haven't prevented illegal crossings. The only thing they've smashed is the record for the number of people crossing the English Channel. So I hope that this action that the Home Secretary is taking works. Of course we all want to see the illegal crossings come down and the number of people coming into the country get under control. But so far I've seen little to no evidence that Labour really have a concrete plan for doing so.
In other news, the government's changing the law to stop the Sentencing Council issuing new guidelines to courts in England and Wales without the explicit approval of the Justice Secretary. Under the new rules, Shabana Mahmood will have to veto powers over any new sentencing guidelines issued by the independent public body. The change comes after a public dispute earlier in the year between the Sentencing Council and the government over pre-sentence reports for offenders from certain minority groups. The new measure will be brought in as part of the sentencing bill being introduced in the House of Commons today. Both the Justice Secretary and the Lady Chief of Justice, who's the head of the judiciary, will be given individual powers requiring them both to approve any future guidelines before they can be issued by the Sentencing Council. Chinese President Xi Jinping and his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin have kicked off bilateral talks in Beijing on the eve of a massive military parade in the Chinese capital. Putin hailed relations between the countries, saying they were at an unprecedented level. Xi told Putin that China-Russia relations have withstood the test of international changes, adding that Beijing was willing to work with Moscow to promote the construction of a more just and reasonable global governance system. Xi is set to host China's largest ever military parade, which will mark the 80th anniversary of the surrender of the Japanese in China at the end of World War II. Helicopter teams are searching remote villages in Afghanistan for survivors of a magnitude 6 earthquake, leaving more than 800 people dead and over 3,000 injured. The earthquake struck the mountainous Kunar province on Sunday, and with roads blocked by debris, rescue operations need to be carried out by air. The death toll could rise significantly, as many are still feared to be trapped under the rubble, while officials report entire villages being destroyed. The Taliban's called for international aid, with the UK pledging £1 million in relief funding, stressing that money will not go into the hands of the Taliban. Now, Sainsbury's says it plans to introduce facial recognition across its UK shops as it launches the controversial technology in its first stores. The UK's second largest supermarket chain has informed staff in 2 stores it's to start an 8-week trial before potentially rolling out the technology nationwide. Sainsbury's says the technology is part of its efforts to identify shoplifters and curb a sharp increase in retail crime in recent years. However, use of facial recognition has been heavily criticised by privacy groups, with the rival Asda facing thousands of complaints after launching its own similar trial earlier this year. Bosses at Sainsbury's, which has more than 1,400 shops across the country, said the plans are not about monitoring colleagues or customers. Now, the Northern Lights were visible across parts of the UK and Ireland overnight and may appear again later today following a powerful solar storm. The display was caused by a fast-moving coronal mass ejection that left the sun late on Saturday and was forecast to reach Earth between Monday and early this morning. The Met Office earlier said the resulting geomagnetic activity could make the aurora visible further south than usual, provided those skies are dark and clear. Premier League clubs have splashed out more than ever before in a transfer window as spending this summer surpassed £3 billion. A total of £2.73 billion had been spent by the 31st of August. But big money deadline day deals headlined by Alexander Isak's move from Newcastle to Liverpool for a British record £125 million pushed the total to that £3 billion. The spending was significantly more than last summer, when the outlay by top flight teams was £1.96 billion. The league's record had been the £2.36 billion spend in the summer 2023 window. A total this year is more than was spent by Bundesliga, La Liga, Ligue 1 and Serie A clubs combined. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More in half an hour.
Hello, welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates. Now, let's see what you've been saying on the emails. Have we got any there, Andrew?
I can't read them because I'm so hopeless. I just.
Is it a technical issue, a user error?
No, it's just me.
That's what I mean.
IT, modernity, bring back the quill and pot of ink.
Yes, indeed. Well, I'm just searching for some good... Well, I think a lot of comments on Kemi Badenoch and her chances of outdoing reform, which don't seem to be very high. Jocelyn says the more that Kemi talks down reform, the quicker she seals her own fate and the party. I mean, it's certainly not looking good for the Conservatives in Scotland, is it at all, Andrew?
No, and predictions, I mean, they did very badly at the last 6 predictions. They could virtually be wiped out because there's going to be key elections next year, especially important for reform in Wales, where people tell me it is a done deal. They're going to capture Wales for the first time. So reform will run one country in the United Kingdom for the first time, and they're expected to do well in Scotland, where they have not done well thus far.
They've had their first defection, haven't they, ever? Remember the Scottish Parliament a couple of weeks ago? But Dawn Rhodes points out that if Kemi didn't go, she'd be slated for that too.
Yeah,
which is also true.
Yeah, she can't win. And also, what is she supposed to do? Ignore reform? But actually, she's right about the North Sea. It's our oil and gas. Norway is in there. digging away.
Yeah.
And why are we ignoring it?
And it's
because
jobs, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is. But because this government's so pathologically opposed to
oil and gas,
fossil fuels, yeah.
We definitely, I mean, there aren't huge reserves left, but it's certainly
well, get what's there.
Exactly, and it may not make a huge difference to the price, but at least there'll be tax revenues from it and jobs.
Yeah.
And it's just sensible. We're going to need it for a long time, aren't we?
Yeah,
even if the renewables somehow become more reliable. Maybe we'll get more wind and sun.
Maybe we get more wind. Right, OK. What if we don't?
Exactly. Well, shall we move on now? Because
Yeah.
the government is going to change the law to stop the Sentencing Council from issuing guidelines without the explicit approval of the Justice Secretary.
Now, this has been triggered by the row over what was called two-tier justice earlier in the year when the Sentencing Council issued guidelines. This is an independent body which recommended, I mean, it was unbelievable at the time, more lenient sentences to those from ethnic minorities. Outrage, and quite right too.
Well, weren't they recommending that people from ethnic minorities and transgender people and women were offered pre-sentencing reports, which then made them more likely to receive lesser sentences, which did seem an outrage. So will this plan for more democratic oversight stop future controversies?
Let's get the thoughts of Barrister Philip Taylor. Philip, welcome to the show. Just explain to people what the Sentencing Council is, because a lot of people probably I've never heard of it, don't know what it is and what it's supposed to do.
Well, thank you very much, Andrew and Miriam. The Sentencing Council is an organisation which effectively gives advice about the level of sentence that a person is actually going to receive. And it's looked at on the basis of taking a whole range of different views into account. I've always been a critic of the Sentencing Council. I don't think it really should exist, because my view is judges should be allowed to judge. They should get on with hearing the evidence, making a decision, because they're the people who know what has happened. And it's easy for someone who's outside to make a comment or a criticism, but they don't generally have the full picture. And the difficulty you've got, of course, is sentencing is a very emotive issue. But what we've got here with the Justice Secretary is a clear interference with the judiciary, in my opinion. And I actually reject the fact that she should have the power to veto what is actually being said. Because, as I said, the person who makes a decision is the judge, and that's the way it should remain.
But we've already got, haven't we, in another respect, Philip, the Attorney General can intervene if a sentence is deemed to be too lenient.
Certainly, or the Solicitor General. Now, in certain circumstances, that's correct, because any prosecuting counsel will be advising the court at the end of the trial when the sentence comes up, if the person is convicted. They will be expected to advise. Now, what I say is that there is no difficulty in advising, but what you should have is a position where the judges must not be allowed to be fettered in the way in which they actually do their job. Because what you've got is a typical example of socialism in action. You've got interference with the judiciary because they want to control what is being said. I understand the views, but...
Sorry, how can it be true that on the one hand you're saying that the Sentencing Council itself is undemocratic or an interference with the judiciary, but the move by Shabana Mahmood today to make sure that there's political oversight over that council is also an interference with the judiciary?
Well, I don't know that there should be a political oversight of something like the Sentencing Guidelines Council. I don't really agree with the concept in the beginning, because, as I've said, the issue is really for the trial judge. However, if she wishes to go down this dangerous route, you've mentioned in your report about pre-sentence reports and the problems with the ethnic minorities. It's much wider than that, with respect. The pre-sentence report covers everybody, and it tries to give the judge the best options which that person has to sentence a person for a crime. Obviously, you have a very large number of reports from the Court of Appeal on sentencing levels, but I don't think we need interference in the new sentencing bill from the Justice Secretary trying to take more power, which I don't think she should have. She should leave it with the judges.
And the Sentencing Council, who are the people on the Sentencing Council, Philip? Are they lawyers, ex-judges? Are they people who understand the law?
Well, I think I've got to be very careful. I wouldn't want to be rude about any particular people.
You can be rude on this programme if you like.
Generally speaking, with any of the people in these, you can call them quangos, you can call them what you want, but it's always the great and the good who are the people there. They're the usual suspects, to use a phrase, seem to turn up regularly on these particular organizations. They are obviously staffed with people with experience. I'm not in any way suggesting that I belittle the work that they do. It's just that I do believe if we have the separation of the powers in this country, between the executive, the judiciary and the legislature, we must maintain those separations. And when you start getting the Justice Secretary interfering, I think she's overstepping the mark. Now, obviously, Parliament will debate this, and no doubt the Labour Party will win, but I think it's something we should look at again at a later stage, because we do need to get advice, but the best person to advise is a very experienced judge who has had years of experience doing this work, and he has access, or she has access, to sentencing case reports, so they know exactly what levels they're looking at. With respect to what judges have, they do have a little booklet about sentencing, which they have on their desk. So they know they will have a very good idea right at the beginning of what sentence they plan to inflict on the defendant if he's convicted.
Well, Barrister Philip Taylor, thank you so much for your insight today. I think another quango
set up by the Tories.
Yeah, I know, it's tragic. Yeah, another quango that should be looked at is the College of Policing, because of course they famously introduced the non-crime hate incidents. They're not a creation of Parliament or legislation. That's just an advisory
non-crime hate incident. I mean, it doesn't even trip off the tongue.
But how is the College of Policing, which is completely unelected, able to introduce something that's been as influential as that over free speech and freedom of expression?
I agree.
So I think Shabana Mahmood should have them in her sights next. But that's probably the Home Secretary's jurisdiction, and she has other issues at the moment.
She certainly does. Now, still ahead, a leading economist will give their verdict on reforms plans, which were unveiled, we heard them unveiled in this programme yesterday, to tackle the crisis in public sector pensions, and also, frankly, the woeful way in which they're run, which is not in the financial benefits of any of us.
And up next, Labour are tightening the law as Yvette Cooper has announced a temporary suspension of refugee family reunions. You're watching Britain's Newsroom, Britain's favourite morning show on GB News.
At GB News, we are proud to stand for you, for the Britain you love, for the communities you live in. That's what makes us the fearless champions of Britain. It's voices, and its values. Because we, at GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Sure it is.
Welcome back. It's 22 minutes past 11. You're watching Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
It's time for our Great British Giveaway. It's an amazing one, actually. It's worth over £104,000. What could you win?
A 4-berth motorhome worth over £74,000 and a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash. Here's Hayley Sparks with all the details.
It's our biggest, greatest Great British giveaway to date. Your chance to win a prize package worth over £104,000. You could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primero motorhome. With thanks to Marquis Leisure, this 4-berth home from home comes complete with integrated kitchen and bathroom areas, sky view roof light, and has all the tech you'd expect from the latest 2025 model. We'll also give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to make sure any adventures in your motorhome are taken in style.
For a chance to win the motorhome and cash, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. The winner will be contacted live on GB News, week commencing 10th of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom, and we're joined now in the studio by GB News' senior political commentator Nigel Nelson and former government special advisor Charlie Rowley to go through the news headlines. Now, there's an interesting story, Charlie, in the Daily Mail. It's a 2-year report that claims racism in the UK countryside is getting worse, with abuse normalised and tolerated. What do you think of this academic research?
Rubbish.
Well, it's a load of old fun. Yes, yeah. 2 years, as you say. 2 years to interview how many people? 115. It took 2 years.
Very scientific.
And this is where, you know, people often ask about, you know, what you do when you go to university, or the tuition fees that people have been paying. You know, University of Leicester, where this report was undertaken, have funded this 2-year holiday spree by the sounds of things and cobbled something together at the end. 115 people, that's nobody. But they've asked the question about, do you feel that the countryside is effectively exclusive in any kind of particular way?
Well, let me read this out. The report also claimed that non-verbal cues such as incessant staring and unfriendly body language made individuals from ethnic minority backgrounds feel unwelcome.
And no Wellington boots.
That's probably what they were staring at, yes.
Walking shoes. I'm a man with certain vintage. I've never owned a pair of walking shoes.
I haven't got walking shoes. I've got Wellington boots.
I've never owned a pair of walking shoes. I've got a pair of wellies.
Well, there you go.
A pair of trainers.
So we'd both be OK in the countryside.
It does not impede on your appreciation of the countryside having walking shoes or not.
Well, it depends how far you have to walk.
It's pathetic. Haven't these universities got better things to do?
Well, you would have thought so. But the idea that, you know, the countryside is now all of a sudden racist, or the rural communities in our great countryside is all of a sudden exclusive, as I say, it's ridiculous. What a waste of time.
We've got to bring you some breaking news, and this is really earth-shattering stuff, this is, because Zach Polansky, No, not the filmmaker. This is Zach Polanski has been elected the new Green Party leader in England and Wales. The result will mean his party adopts his vision to become a mass membership eco-populism movement taking on Reform UK. Tricky that when they've got 20,000 people took part in the vote, and I think Reform have got about 300,000 members.
Very important democratic announcement, Andrew.
It is, but he is also not an MP, which is quite interesting.
No, that's...
So it means
that they have an election.
Yes, they need a Westminster leader in the Commons.
Yeah.
And as the other two who were doing it on a joint ticket were contesting the leadership, it could be one of them. So we have the extraordinary situation that the loser becomes the winner at the end of all this.
Extraordinary. And there's talk that Polanski will do an alliance, perhaps some form of unofficial pact with the Jeremy Corbyn left-wing party, which could be a threat to Labour.
Yeah, I mean, that is the big question now, that he's certainly more left-wing than the other two who were going for the leadership. And there has been speculation that he could link up with Jeremy Corbyn, an electoral pact, effectively, so they wouldn't stand in each other's seats. This is, of course, assuming that Jeremy Corbyn's new party actually gets off the ground. I think there's a lot of problems with organisation. It's just very difficult forming a political party.
But the Greens, they have... How many MPs have they got now?
4.
4 in Parliament. So, I mean, they are beginning to get some momentum, Charlie.
Yeah, I think so.
On the left, at Labour's expense. And I think they'll get more at Labour's expense if Starmer keeps trying to take on Reform.
I think that's absolutely right. And you mentioned about the members. I think as part of the result, they've had to announce that they've got about 68,000 members of the Green Party. Now, the Tories, I think, we're only on 130-odd, which is probably a declining breed.
Show us the evidence.
Yes, which they refused to do.
Yeah.
Reform on, whatever it is, 250-odd thousand. I don't know how many are in the Labour Party, but I know that's just a membership. But, you have to have members who are the foot soldiers that go out there and do the legwork, that knock on the doors, that deliver the leaflets, that galvanise...
If they've got 68,000 members, why did only 20,000 vote?
Well, that's interesting, because it is a low turnout. I mean, even though, Zach will think this is a great victory. He's got 84% of the vote. But the turnout is low. But you're right, I mean...
Less than a third.
Less than a third.
Maybe they think that...
Yeah, it is odd. It just makes it feel like that Green Party members aren't terribly enthusiastic about the Green Party.
Or any of the leaders. Or any of the potential leaders.
Yeah, I mean, it may well be that.
They've got some good local bases, haven't they? I mean, certainly they're seen as a party of protest locally. I know in Suffolk they've had some success because people object to, bizarrely, huge amounts of cables being onshored from wind farms. I mean, it's surprising that people would then vote Green. But anyway, but in some local areas, they've become a serious opposition to the Conservatives.
Totally, yes, yeah. Not least of all in my own hometown of Hertfordshire, which is sad to say.
Do you think people still think that the Green Party is all about having nice countryside, which most people agree with, and don't realise that they're actually very, very far left socialist in some of their policies?
Exactly, yes, because all of their policies tend to be, because there's an alignment, as it is on the far left, with increasing taxes, it seems to me. But where you're seeing the whole change of Reform, galvanising support from both traditional Conservatives and what used to be, obviously, that red wall part of Labour, so they're attracting a huge amount of attention. They've only got 4 MPs as well, I think, it is now. It's interesting that Reform have got the same number of MPs as the Green Party. The Green Party have now got a new leader. Can he do what Nigel Farage has done to galvanise public opinion?
I suspect not.
I suspect not. But,
I was very struck that the Polanski lives in Hackney, of course he does, and is a vegan, of course he is.
Oh, there you go, he's living the brand. It's very authentic.
This is almost a cliche, isn't it? I'm not being disrespectful to people who live in Hackney or being disrespectful to vegans, but I just thought... Yes.
I mean, I would expect that amongst the Greens would be a lot of vegans.
Yes,
I mean, you would imagine that, wouldn't you?
Yes.
I mean, on the serious point, it is sort of the direction of travel, isn't it? That as we're going towards net zero, which I know you don't agree with, but that is the way that the world is going and Britain is going.
The world is not going vegan.
No, but the world is heading for net zero.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, at the next general election, obviously, if people want to get rid of Labour, if that's what people want to do, and there are now emerging parties like the Greens that have popped up, it will be very interesting to see if that traditional Labour base goes to the Greens and Corbyn's new faction.
Well, if Corbyn's party... I really think if Corbyn's party does get up and running, I don't know if you agree with me, Nigel, it's a serious threat to Labour.
No, it would be. I mean, assuming that Corbyn was able to actually put people, say, in every seat, I mean, the predictions are he could actually garner 10% of the vote.
Yeah.
If he adds that to the Green vote, you suddenly are in a different position. And when it comes down to our first-past-the-post system, although that's always unkind to small parties, once those two have got together, they would start to actually get seats.
The only thing predictable, though, about the next election on this basis is that it's going to be highly unpredictable, because if you've got 3 or 4, potentially even 5 parties in some constituencies that could split the vote, we could have many, many results come down to a couple of hundred votes and be completely unpredictable.
Exactly, and that's why I think, you know, there is obviously a lot of potential, because it could be a Reform landslide in some of those constituencies if the left vote splits or fractures, but also it could be a Labour victory again. It could be a Labour minority because of the, you know, the splitting the vote between maybe Conservatives and Reform, or Conservatives and the Lib Dems if you're in particular parts of the country.
It just feels to me like we're seeing the end or the breakup of the two-party system.
But we still got first past the post, which is designed for a two-party system rather than proportional representation.
And of course, if Reform were to win with an overall majority, Nigel Farage is in favour of electoral reform. Or will he be?
Oh, he will. Well,
he wins from first past the post.
That no winning party ever wants proportional representation. That they've always moved away from it.
Yeah, fascinating, fascinating.
Well, Charlie, Nigel, thank you so much for your insight this morning. We've got your 60-second news update with Tatiana Sanchez next.
Thank you very much. The top stories. Yvette Cooper says she wants to clamp down on international students claiming asylum. It comes as tens of thousands of foreign students are being contacted directly by the government and told they'll be removed from the UK if they overstay their visas. The government's changing the law to stop the Sentencing Council issuing new guidelines to courts in England and Wales without the explicit approval of the Justice Secretary Shabana Mahmood. Chinese President Xi Jinping and his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin have kicked off bilateral talks in Beijing. It's on the eve of a massive military parade in the Chinese capital. President Putin hailed relations between the countries, saying they were at an unprecedented level. Helicopter teams searching remote villages in Afghanistan for survivors of a magnitude 6 earthquake that happened on Sunday, leaving more than 800 people dead. Those are the latest headlines for now. More in half an hour.
For all the latest from GB News whilst you're on the go, get the GB News app. Scan the QR code now to download or visit gbnews.com/app.
You're watching GB News, and coming up shortly at noon, Good Afternoon Britain with Cameron and Nana. Welcome to the studio, both of you. What's coming up in your show?
Well, apparently the countryside here in the United Kingdom is overwhelmingly white.
What a surprise!
Miriam and Andrew.
Was it 85% white population?
Yes, something like that.
That's pretty average.
This is according to a report from the University of Leicester's Centre for Hate Studies, saying the countryside lacks halal food and prayer spaces, contributing to feelings of exclusion in the countryside.
The Centre for what studies?
The Centre for Hate Studies at the University of Leicester.
Can you
so we're going to be debating whether the countryside is
This is funded by the
racist.
public.
Can you believe this, that even exists? A Centre for Hate Studies?
Yeah, well, I didn't know about it until this morning.
It's probably funded by some government quango somewhere.
Unbelievable.
Yes, the Countryside Alliance has obviously responded to this report, saying it's nonsense, and of course there is lower racism in rural areas than according to Hate.
Oh no, I can't go to the countryside now. Yeah, every time I go to the countryside, people are amazing. I've never had any racism in the countryside, and actually, when I was a lot younger, I'd go into a pub, and because there weren't many people of colour like me there, suddenly it would be like, everything goes quiet, everyone looks at me, and I'll just go and go, hi, everybody's looking at me. Oh, my God, me. And everyone was lovely, so this is nonsense.
Well, the pub's a sense of a community, isn't it? So I think there's strong opposition to that particular report. Also, speaking of pubs, Gen Z apparently have ice in their beers now. I can't believe it. It waters it down. Disgusting.
Sacrilege, sacrilege. Apparently they want to be hydrated. We'll just have a glass of water by the beer.
Exactly.
I know.
Exactly. Do.
I get it with wine if you want to cool the wine down and it's a hot bottle, but
and also if the wine's horrible, somehow if you put some ice in it, it makes it less horrible.
And then there's a story. A lot of the historians are saying it is time to bring back the birth of England to this country and start history there, rather than starting it at William the Conqueror. There was another king, I'm not going to pronounce his name, but it was a lot earlier, and that was when England... Can you say it?
Anyway, there is a resurgence, isn't there, in English national identities. Obviously, the Scots, the Welsh, the Irish have all got their national identity, and we're all used to that. But actually, with this flag movement and with more talk about, you know, what does it mean to be English, we're starting to see a resurgence of national identity.
King Athelstan. In 900...
Sure, his wife was called Edith. They were all called
Have you seen,
Edith.
by the way, the BBC series about William the Conqueror and how...
I watched half an hour. It's rubbish.
So bad.
No, I haven't seen it.
So bad. The accents are terrible. The facts, they've taken
I'm
liberties
normally
with the
a
facts.
big fan of period dramas, but I watched half an hour and switched off.
Well, there's been a lot of criticism in the papers that it's not historically accurate, particularly around the casting of certain characters.
And finally, very briefly, there's this story about this woman. She got a rescue dog. She has a condition. The dog, she collapsed, and the dog pressed the panic button. He's only had it for 2 weeks. The dog saved her because obviously the emergency services arrived. And then this woman wrote her story to Queen Camilla, and Queen Camilla wrote back.
Because they all love Jack Russells.
Have you got any photos of the dog to show?
We do. You'll have to tune in to get the photos of the dog.
Well, all that more at midday, but up next we're going to analyse Reform's pension promises after Richard Tice, Reform's deputy leader, said that their plans could dramatically cut your council tax. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Hello, very good day to you. This is your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. Now, the changeable weather is going to continue as we go through today. Yes, most of us will see some bright or sunny breaks, but there will also be some showers, even some longer spells of rain, because low pressure still firmly in control, a mature low to the north of the UK, and then another smaller low pressure system has pushed in from the south, and it's this that's been the driving force for some persistent rain across southern parts through this morning, and there will be some more persistent rain across parts of the southeast as we go through this afternoon. Elsewhere, a mixture of some bright sunny spells, but also a fair few showers, and some of them could be heavy, maybe even thundery. If you catch any of those bright sunny spells, it's not going to feel too bad. Relatively warm, actually, with temperatures in the low 20s for some and winds lighter than yesterday. Then, as we go through the end of today, well, across parts of the southeast, still some persistent rain for a little while yet, eventually clearing away towards the east. Otherwise, still a fair few showers continuing, and some of them could be heavy. There could be some thunder, some hail, some lightning mixed in, especially across some parts of Scotland, particularly towards the northwest. This is where we're going to see the heaviest, most frequent showers. Otherwise, as we go through the night, most of the showers are actually going to die out, so it is going to turn largely dry with some clear skies, but only for a short period of time. That's because there's more wet and windy weather pushing in from the southwest as we go through the early hours of tomorrow morning, spreading across much of England, Wales and also Northern Ireland. Under the wet and windy weather, well, temperatures won't drop a huge amount, mid-teens for many places, but a fair few degrees fresher than this for some parts of Scotland where we get clearer skies. Tomorrow is then going to be a wet and windy day. Some heavy rain around, though the more persistent rain clearing away from England as we go through into the afternoon, with some hefty showers following in behind. More wet weather, though, across parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland, with the persistent rain continuing. Also, watch out for the strong winds, and with those, temperatures are really academic. Bye-bye.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom on GB News. It's 20 to 12.
Now we've got some breaking news. Irish comedian Graham Linehan claims he was arrested by police at Heathrow over a set of tweets he posted about trans issues earlier this year. Our very own Charlie Peters has the story. I can't believe this, Charlie, really.
Well, the Met Police have confirmed that a man in his 50s was arrested yesterday around 1 p.m. at Heathrow Airport, having arrived on an inbound flight, an American Airlines flight. They said that the man was arrested on suspicion of inciting violence and that this was in relation to posts on X. Now, they also continued that having been taken to police custody, officers became concerned for his health and he was taken to hospital. His condition, they said, was neither life-threatening nor life-changing. He's since been bailed, hasn't been charged yet. However, investigation continues. Graham Linehan, the comedian, writer of Father Ted, he has said on his Substack blog that his blood pressure was over 200 and that's why he was taken to A&E where he was kept for some time. He's also said on that blog that the posts that this investigation is in relation to are from April earlier this year, and he has produced those posts in the blog where he's referring to trans-identified men and female-only spaces and saying that you should make a scene if men, trans-identified males, are in those spaces. He's also shared other screenshots of those posts, but he also said that with that blood pressure spike that he was taken to hospital and the Met Police confirming that level of that account. Other details not being confirmed, saying that he was arrested by 5 armed police officers at Heathrow.
5
armed officers.
Yeah. Good God.
Graham Linehan also refers to sort of the red mist descending on him as his rights were read out to him, but he has been bailed. He is unable to post details, he says, on X or on any other social media platform, I believe, because of his bail conditions, though he hasn't shared footage or any sort of evidence of those bail conditions, and the Met haven't confirmed those conditions either.
It's quite extraordinary. He's become quite a figure in the gender-critical movement.
Yes,
He's very outspoken about the impact of trans rights on women and actually lost a lot of work in the comedy trade as a result of this. But this will come as a further blow to many people who think that free speech is under threat in this country.
Yes, there have been wider concerns about free speech in Britain for obviously a great period now, sparked by recent controversies. The Prime Minister has said regularly, both alongside the US President Donald Trump and in the Commons, that Britain has always had free speech and it's fiercely defended. But Graham Linehan and his supporters online posting to this incident and as an example of perhaps a lack of free speech in some cases. But he has been bailed and an investigation is continuing.
Fascinating, Charlie. Now, moving on, Reforms UK's Deputy Richard Tice announced plans to cut council tax by up to £350 a year. They've gone through the books in the councils they run because what they talk about, grossly mismanaged public sector pensions.
The size of these pension funds, the numbers are enormous. Our 13 councils alone, you're looking to March 24, which is the last audited numbers, about £66 billion. What is that? It's bigger than our annual defence budget, just in 13 councils. Across the whole of the local government pension scheme, it's over £400 billion.
Well, this is, of course, just the latest chapter in the long march of Reform's Doge project through local councils as a means of cracking down on wasteful spending. And we're joined now by economist Neil Record. Neil, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Are you pleased that Reform are highlighting issues around public sector pensions? Because it's not just local authority pensions that are potentially causing economic problems. It's many other public sector pensions as well.
Yes, I am. But I think this particular point that Richard is making, namely the fees that investment managers are charging, is slightly oblique. Namely, most of them will hire active managers. There is an ongoing professional debate about whether it's better to have a relatively more expensive active manager who makes decisions on behalf of the pensioners, or have what's called passive management, which are much lower fees. So you could go to passive management, but the jury is out as to whether then your performance would be as good as it would be with active management. So I think this is not something that I would if I was Richard Tice, I would have pushed, because I think it's a difficult and technical area where, as I say, there's been a professional debate. I used to be an investment manager for multiple decades, and it's not clear what the answer is ultimately. But I think it raises a wider question, which is not the local government pension scheme, which, as Mr. Tice said, is quite well funded. It has about £400 billion worth of assets and very, very roughly about £400 billion worth of liabilities, and that's the pensions that are owed to local government employees across the country. The area where I think is hugely worrying is all the non-local authority civil service teachers, doctors, nurses, and they are in what's called the unfunded pension scheme, national pension scheme, public sector pension scheme. And this has no assets at all. So Mr. Tice talks about local government having 400 billion of assets and about 400 billion of liabilities. But on the latest data, there's about 1.4 billion pounds worth of liabilities in the public sector scheme. And by the way, that's come down because of a change in interest rates, although the numbers are still going up in terms of what you're spending. And there are no assets whatsoever to pay these pensions. So this year, just to be clear, this year, we, the taxpayer, will pay £57 billion worth of pensions to existing public sector pensioners, and there are no assets to back that up.
Should we be scared by that? It sounds scary.
Yes, I think we should. I've just been reanalysing the government's claim about its debt interest. So at the moment it says, roughly speaking, the debt interest, this is HMT, so the Treasury's numbers are that our current debt interest is about 120 billion a year. Now that's a lot. That's more than twice the defence budget. But they ignore the interest on the borrowed money effectively, because they have borrowed money because they've not invested it on public sector pensions, which is another £63 billion. These are government numbers, not my own. So the total debt interest, if you calculate it properly, isn't 120, it's 170. There's some netting to be done, but it's 170 billion a year. Now that's the same as the NHS budget. So our debt interest is materially affected by the fact that we haven't put this money aside. And this is not a Labour Party problem, it's not a Conservative problem, it's all parties over the last 40 years. And there's many of us in the profession, investment actuarial profession, who've been thinking and write about this for the last 20 years. And I'm afraid there's been little or no movement because it's such a difficult one to tackle, because we're now in a Ponzi scheme where if we stop the schemes now, all of a sudden what looks like, at the moment there are contributions that are coming from employers and employees, doctors, schools, hospitals and so on, that are roughly speaking covering, that's £57 billion a year. So at the moment it looks on the national accounts that public sector pensions are rounding £1 billion or two. But if you stop accruing all these wonderful index-linked gold-plated pensions, that 57 billion suddenly appears as new expenditure.
Neil, I'm so sorry. We've run out of time. I'm really sorry, because this is such an important topic.
I think we need to go back to it, because
we do.
These
and
figures
so
are eye-watering.
They are. We would love to have you on again, because this is such an important and undiscussed topic. But huge apologies. We're going to have to leave it there, Neil. But thank you so much for coming on. We're looking at concerns that a third of celebrities on Strictly are taking fat jabs. But first of all, your European weather forecast.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Plenty of September sunshine on offer around the Mediterranean at the moment. There are a few showers in Croatia. They'll clear away. And some wet and windy weather across the far north of Portugal and the northwest of Spain. But most of Spain, the Balearics, dry and sunny. Italy turning sunny as well after some heavy showers earlier in the week. Though the showers across Croatia, they are clearing away, and much of the Greek islands also fine, dry and sunny. And that'll generally continue throughout this week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here.
I'm Michelle Duke, Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection. Tune in to GB News, anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom, and that was a really fascinating...
We're going to get him back, because what we didn't explore was the net zero issue too, because Richard Tice said a lot of these wretched left-wing councils are making sure the pensions are all tied up in net zero environmental projects, which may not give a good return to the pensioner.
Exactly. And these
which should be what they care about most, maximising the return.
But at least the local authority pensions are funded, as in people are paying into a pot. Teachers, nurses, doctors' pensions, they're not, it's just being, the pensions are being paid from current taxes, but nothing's being saved for the future, and I just don't think this is known.
The rainy day.
Exactly. Well, we will definitely get him back up, because that was a very, very interesting interview from Neil Record.
And we will return to Strictly. Why are at least 3 contestants on fat jabs? The whole point about going on Strictly is you lose some blooming weight.
Absolutely, do it naturally.
Because you get fit. Are you going? Would you go on Strictly?
I don't know.
I think that's a yes.
It's embarrassing, I think.
That's a yes.
No, I
think
wouldn't.
she would.
Cameron Nana
she's
up
auditioning.
next. I am not.
Yes, hello, welcome. Listen, we've got loads coming up, including that very interesting cabinet shake-up where Darren Jones, Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Rachel Reeves' number 2, was moved to Chief Secretary to Keir Starmer. That means he's got a spot in cabinet. Well, we'll be talking about what happened there.
Absolutely, and the Home Secretary cannot guarantee migrants be deported back to France above the one-in, one-out scheme this month. So what's next?
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, very good day to you. This is your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. Now, the changeable weather is going to continue as we go through today. Yes, most of us will see some bright or sunny breaks, but there will also be some showers, even some longer spells of rain, because low pressure still firmly in control, a mature low to the north of the UK, and then another smaller low pressure system has pushed in from the south, and it's this that's been the driving force for some persistent rain across southern parts through this morning, and there will be some more persistent rain across parts of the southeast as we go through this afternoon. Elsewhere, a mixture of some bright sunny spells, but also a fair few showers, and some of them could be heavy, maybe even thundery. If you catch any of those bright sunny spells, it's not going to feel too bad. Relatively warm, actually, with temperatures in the low 20s for some and winds lighter than yesterday. Then, as we go through the end of today, well, across parts of the southeast, still some persistent rain for a little while yet, eventually clearing away towards the east. Otherwise, still a fair few showers continuing, and some of them could be heavy. There could be some thunder, some hail, some lightning mixed in, especially across some parts of Scotland, particularly towards the northwest. This is where we're going to see the heaviest, most frequent showers. Otherwise, as we go through the night, most of the showers are actually going to die out, so it is going to turn largely dry with some clear skies, but only for a short period of time. That's because there's more wet and windy weather pushing in from the southwest as we go through the early hours of tomorrow morning, spreading across much of England, Wales and also Northern Ireland. Under the wet and windy weather, while temperatures won't drop a huge amount, mid-teens for many places, but a fair few degrees fresher than this for some parts of Scotland where we get clearer skies. Tomorrow is then going to be a wet and windy day. Some heavy rain around, though the more persistent rain clearing away from England as we go through into the afternoon, with some hefty showers following in behind. More wet weather, though, across parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland, with the persistent rain continuing. Also, watch out for the strong winds, and with those, temperatures are really academic. Bye-bye.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's our biggest Great British giveaway to date. You could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primera motorhome. This 4-berth home from home comes complete with integrated kitchen and bathroom areas and has all of the tech you'd expect from the latest